way up north, and I'm in Savannah.
Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a great day. You're watching the Service Business Mastery podcast. I'm host sitting here, actually sitting next to my co-host, not virtually this time, with Josh. And we have some wonderful guests here. We're actually at Epic 2021 here in Vegas. My first time in Vegas. I'm not a gambler, but it's really a different experience. So we have Ellen Rohr here and Drew Cameron. And I'm excited to talk. We've been talking already for a little while now, but it's one of those things where, like, the more you talk, the more you find out information that you want to talk about. And that's the way it goes. I'm a naturally inquisitive person, so I'll ask questions until
that's blue. That's a great way to describe you.
Yeah, it is. Like, well, what would happen if we did this? What would happen? And so that's probably why I have so many companies and different exploratory ideas and stuff. But yeah, I'm super thankful for y'all to come and spend some time with us. Y'all have a jam-packed schedule. I know y'all do, and so we're so thankful for y'all coming on the show today. But with that being said, would you mind introducing yourselves and who you are and your little bit of background?
I'm Ellen Rohr. I'm the president of Zoom Drain Franchise Company, and I've been in this industry for a long, long time. I married a plumber, a guy named Hot Rod, once upon a time. And that's how I got introduced to this great industry. And I like to think of myself as an industry champion. I love dirty jobs. I love the people who do them. I think they deserve to make a great living. And we aim to create careers, not just jobs, in our franchise company. And I'm really excited to visit with your audience. So Thank you so much.
Absolutely. What is the franchise? I mean, what is it called or all of that?
Zoom Drain Franchise,
Okay.
and we're the drain and sewer experts.
Okay.
So our promise to our customers is that we're going to be fast. You got to get there fast. If the drains are clogged, we're focused. All we do is sewer and drain. So we're like experts, like brain surgeons to general practitioners.
Yeah.
That's all we do. And we get it fixed. Even if we're not the guys to fix it, if we have to bring in an army, we're going to stick with our customer and make sure that the job is handled. So those are things that customers are looking for. And for our franchisees every day, we help them get calls, texts, and trucks. It's a very simple, elegant process. And I'm really, really excited about what we've accomplished so far and what's to come.
Okay. So I definitely have questions about franchises because I get questioned all the time about joining franchises. Is it good idea? Is it bad idea? It's like having a business partner. People are like, should I bring a business partner on or no? You've heard good experiences, you've heard bad experiences. And so, yeah, I definitely have tons of questions for you.
Let's do that. Yes, I'm happy to have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So how about you, Mr. Drew?
Drew Cameron, and I am the president of Flow Odyssey, as well as Energy Design Systems. That's a small software company that we own. And I'm also one of the founding members of Egia, which is putting on Epic this week. So happy to be here for that and sit down with all of you. And of course, my good friend, Ellen. So.
We love each other.
Yeah, it's great. We stole you guys before you guys got really busy tomorrow and Friday.
Yeah.
So great lineup at Epic.
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge lineup.
I mean,
huge lineup.
Yeah, this is
So
very
busy.
exciting.
Yeah. Cool deal. So what got you into the industry, Drew?
Well, like Ellen, I've been in it forever. I started at age 12, so I have 44 years in the game and family business.
Okay.
So 2 brothers and a sister and dad and mom all in the business, and I'm the last one left. So
Everybody said, no, this isn't for me.
No. Unfortunately, I lost both my brothers.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Different ages. They were both in the industry up until that point.
Okay.
My sister, she retired out of the industry. My mom retired out of the industry. And my dad retired out of the industry. and they're three of them are still with us. But
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Cool deal.
so I grew up in the industry, and I worked in every facet of the HVAC business.
Whereabouts, like geographically?
Grew up in the Philadelphia market, so
Okay.
just outside of Philadelphia. We're in Chester County, Delaware County, Newcastle County, Delaware as well, and parts of Jersey and parts of Maryland.
Gotcha. Yeah, Maryland. I have a buddy of mine that's in Maryland, does plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and it's wild. That DC area right there, that's where he is, and it's crazy how fast he's growing. And it's like if you just provide good customer service, there's so much potential in that market.
Everything's like an hour away.
Yeah, that's
All
it.
these metro areas are like an hour away from DC.
Yeah.
And that's where I went to school too, University of Maryland,
Oh, that's
Okay.
what.
College Park.
Terrapins.
Terrapins.
Yeah.
You got
Oh
it.
yeah, there you go. There you go. Cool deal. So, what kind of questions do you have? Because I'll sit here and ask questions all day long.
Well, actually, back on the franchise, I was thinking because there's such a everyone wants to start a business, right? Everyone's like, well, I'm the best tech here. I want to start a business, and so they go start a business, and they realize it is not what they think their boss does every day. So, where would a franchise come in for somebody that's a technician and wants to get into owning a business?
Well, before we got on the call, we talked about the audience here. And one of you talked about business owners and managers. And what really piqued my interest is that service tech who might want to be a business owner.
Yeah.
So if I could answer or explore that conversation, that perspective.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have service technicians, one of your responsibilities could be that if I don't find a place to keep these people engaged, create careers, not just jobs, then they're going to leave.
Yeah.
They're going to leave. The fizzy ones are going to go start their own businesses. And what I know from being in this business for a long, long time, what I know from personal experience is the likelihood that business is going to be terrible is very high.
Yeah.
Right? That the phone rings all the time. And now maybe you've enlisted your wives to work with you. I mean, I don't work with my husband anymore because early on when we were that mom and pop shop, it was brutal.
Can be.
It was
you can
brutal.
take that home with you. That personal. The boundaries are very easy.
Today, the business a lot of times can be out of the home, so
Oh,
you
yeah,
don't even
yeah.
get to leave the
Uh-huh.
office and separate for a little bit.
That's us
Stay
all day
with
long.
them
Exactly.
all the
That
time.
was us too. And we weren't charging enough. Like it took me like 3 seconds to get to this. This is really like one of my
Passion.
This is I am what do they say to the man with the hammer? Everything is a nail.
That's
this
right.
is my nail because what generally happens is you don't make enough money. And then when you run out of money, you run out of options and it gets very stressful. So I would say to my husband, the plumber, we don't have enough money. And he would hear, I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough.
It took a personal hit.
Well, yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, so we did so much damage in those early days. And then I like to bring him up. Are you guys familiar with Frank Blau? Are you old enough to
Yes.
know who he is? You are.
I don't know.
Well, you might have known him throughout the industry. He's an old timer. And he was the one, I wrote him a letter. He wrote an article in a magazine back in I think that the article came out in 1989. And he wrote an article about how much should a contractor charge. And he does this little breakdown, which you've done, which I've done, you probably have, of what a one-man band, what are the actual expenses. And he divide by numbers.
Like a one truck
A
exercise.
one truck,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
He does it in the magazine. I read the column. I wrote him a letter and it went like this: Dear Mr. Blau, please help me. My husband and I are hating each other. We don't have any money. We're up in dead into our eyeballs. And then I spend 2 pages telling him why none of that's going to work for me.
Oh.
Well, you don't understand my cheap
His-
customers and my crappy
okay.
guys. And,
Yeah.
all the defenses that anybody. So now in my life, sometimes I sound like a bossy person, and tomorrow I'll probably insult someone because I have little tolerance anymore for
Yeah.
just come on. But I've made every stupid decision and mistake that you can make. And it started with just being chronically overpriced and very committed to it. I have a degree in business administration. I thought I knew something and I just got humbled. And Frank was the person I called. He called me up after I wrote him this letter and he told me where my head was.
Mhm.
First thing, honey, your head is, and I'm
It's
like
stuck
listening
up.
to him on the phone. Who is this guy? Oh, it's the columnist from the magazine.
Yeah.
And then I hung up on him.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I was just not having it. And then Hot Rod comes home that day and I told him the guy made me cry and I told him where my head was. Hot Rod's like, I think you got to call him back. So like I do, and I'm tear stained. And I ended up joining Contractors 2000 when they first started. I wasn't a founding member, but I went to the first super meeting. So this is going back to the early 1990s. But that's when I got a clue. So I know you're asking about franchising, but what I did is I had to learn how to run a business. And
No, you weren't in a franchise at that point. were you?
no,
Okay.
no, this was just
A lot
us
of
and
that
our
in the
company.
contracting industry wasn't around back at that time, I don't think, was it?
Well, Roto-Rooter was there. Mr. Rooter was there. You know, these are
I guess that was the founding.
Yeah,
foundation for
they've been around for a very long time. But for us, that a trade association, a group like Epic, one of the great affinity groups. If you are interested in starting a business, you got to learn how to do the business. In fact, probably the best thing I ever did was never learn how to do the work.
Yeah, I've said it so many times before where it's like, I've had conversations with a buddy of mine. Actually, it was at AHR Expo 2 or 3 years ago. We were up on stage and we were having a round robin conversation, and we really got onto this topic of, if I'm an accountant and I purchase an HVAC company, I see a lot of success with that because I'm not the person out in the field. You can't call me and ask me how to diagnose this capacitor. I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
So you have to hire talent in that aspect, and you have to trust people too. But if you're going into that route, like say we are an HVAC company, and I know that you really are big on stay in your lane, and like plumbing is plumbing, like stay there. But if you're an HVAC company and you do plumbing,
yeah,
you bring plumbing on. I feel like the fact that you don't know plumbing is probably an advantage to you. You can hire people, but then you have to trust people that they're not going to come in and because we've all had those people that interview really good, but they're actually horrible in the field. But like, so how would you actually go about doing something like when with you and not having the experience in the field? How did you, other than, I mean, you had Hot Rod that could kind of weed through the BS, but
well, so my journey went like this. I'm going to give you a very collapsed version because I want to hear from Drew here too. So when we raised our prices, we just made more money, paid off debt, had some freedom. So step one in any business, if you're renting out of your garage or whatever, is to get priced right. And you can do the math, or you can triple your prices. You can quadruple your prices and see if that doesn't help, because it will.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get a little bit of cash and you pay down that debt, then you have options. And the next thing that happened is I turned to my husband, Hot Rod, the plumber, and I said, okay, we've got 4 trucks. You're getting about $1 million in sales. I'm ka-ching. We're in Park City, Utah. We go to Salt Lake. I know where all the rich people live. I'm all set. And Hot Rod's like, you know what? I asked him, what do you want? And he says, I like working all by myself. And I'm like, oh, ouch.
Wow.
And that was, every day I was either getting fired or quitting. We were not doing very well. And now as I look back at it, it's funny, but it was traumatic, at the moment. But that's such an important question. And we've already brought it up today. Like, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. What do you want? Do you want to work all by yourself? You could charge a lot of money. You could find some boutique niche.
Yep.
You could do the whole West Coast chopper model, get in line, right? And you could be very successful doing that.
That's very true.
I wanted minions, people, development, careers, I love technicians. I absolutely love technicians. I've been on, I think, 189 ride-alongs. And by this time in my life, it should have been 1,000.
Wow.
No bad thing comes from strapping yourself into shotgun position and going and seeing what really happens, because most of what we think up in the office makes no sense at all until you go out and go, do you like this? And they're going,
this form is ridiculous.
This one that we do over here already 3 different times, those were always my great ideas. But going to how do you trust them? What we did is we decided not to work together. This is, I went through my Nexstar phase, or Nexstar now. I was deeply and positively impacted by that group, being around other contractors, going to visit.
You are the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
I never knew. It was such a mind blow. And even at that time in the early 1990s, we've lived through this. There was this big wave of consolidation. Okay, so this brings, will you play with others? Could you play with others? Is there some advantage in that? It's part of the question behind the franchise. Like, if you really don't want to play with others, I don't think a franchise is for you.
So you need to be able to interact with. You can't just okay. I'm going to pay my franchise fees and I'm going to stay over here in my
Go do my own
corner.
thing.
Like
Yep.
you can't do that. I'm asking. It's,
Like I think the very so long story short, I ended up being wooed by Clockworks. I went to work at Benjamin Franklin. I was
Yeah.
the first only employee, so I called myself president. You can do that.
That's funny.
I was the only employee, and we grew on my watch. We got to 47 franchisees. It went really fast. It was a brutal few years, but I learned a ton. And what I learned that I loved was I knew I loved the techs. Now I love the franchisees because the dynamic, a healthy franchise works like this. You're interdependent and you're pulling on each other.
Uh-huh.
So the franchisee is going to go, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And the franchisor is going to go, well, what would you rather do? And if you have this dynamic, then the franchisor is in charge of documentation, dissemination, maintaining the brand, the coaching, the connecting the dots, so that typically they say about franchising, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If that appeals to you, you know, franchising can be a good model. And I mean, there are a lot of very, very successful franchises, but it was with Benjamin Franklin that I really learned to love that model, right? But if you don't play a good enough game at your company, franchise or not, those techs are going to leave. So I want to hear from Drew, but then I want to come back to like what kind of counsel we could give to that young at heart person who's thinking about maybe going out on their own.
Well, it's important to know your numbers, right? And that's where you know your numbers, but then you also have to make the sale, which is I think we're more along where Drew's experience in.
Well, if you could do this at $50 an hour, we wouldn't need Drew.
Yeah.
Well, you got to come to find out that most contractors are underpriced, right? You're either underpriced, you're undercapitalized, or like you said, you can't sell, and most of them can't market, right? And so that's all the business side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is most of these technicians jump into the business, and they become a owner and operator, and you need to get out of being that operator as quickly as you possibly can.
Right. So what do you say to people who have a quote unquote successful company and they are still in the van? Like, I've seen a couple people. Greg Fox comes to mind. He's he's a friend of mine. We're not like buddies, but he's done a very successful job of out in California of staying in the van, but he's got tons of technicians, but he also has people in the office who are very successful. I feel like that's probably the reason he's able to do that. For me, whenever I talk to anyone and they're complaining about anything to do with growth, I'm like, you got to get out the van. It's the first thing that you got to do. You got to get out the van. And what's your? I mean, obviously, I feel like that's your thoughts.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they basically say in business, you're either the leader manager, the artist creator, or the entrepreneur, and you have to basically become an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you at first you're all of it, right?
Right. Yeah. That's like E-Myth, like just bundled up in,
exactly.
100%.
Working into business,
Mm-hmm.
into business, all the little mantras out there.
Right.
But you've got to replace yourself, whether you be in the truck, whether you're the salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
and because you have to get in and work on the business, you have to be at the helm. I equate it, if you're a salesperson or a technician, you're basically working on the engines in the boiler room, and there's nobody captaining the ship.
And
it's
just going where it's going. It's up there, and you don't know where you're going.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great point there. What would you say to people? Because, like you said, the technicians starting their own business, and then if I'm making $25 an hour working for the plumber down the street, and then I start charging $50 an hour, in my mind, I'm banking. Like, we're good, we're golden. Can you see it being successful? Like, at this point in the realm of things, can you see time and material being successful? Like, for me, I feel like if anybody asked one of my guys, how much is it going to cost us? Okay, it's going to be $650. How long is it going to take you? And they're like, oh, it should take about an hour. So you charge $650 an hour? Like, no. So that's kind of the conversation
in the bad reviews.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Like, you were $600 for an hour. What did you do?
So yeah, I mean, what would you say to the technician about their numbers when it comes to that? Like, how do they even know really what to do there?
Well, I mean, I'll keep my answer short because we have the numbers lady with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to know your numbers. And at first, time and material is probably how you get out of the gate, right? I mean, that's how you're going to start. But the thing you're not taking into consideration by definition on time and materials is overhead. And the average contractor who starts out of their house thinks they don't have overhead. And that's the mistake. You do have overhead.
Mhm.
A portion of your house is your overhead.
And your truck, even if your truck's paid for, you have to buy another one in the future.
Yes. And your cell phone
Truck,
and your
tools.
tools,
Yep.
right? And you have personal insurance and then you have to take out your general liability insurance. And so you have the same cost structure. And so when someone says, well, that $10 million business has way more overhead than I do because I'm working out of my garage. I say dollar wise, yes, they do. Percentage wise, no. Right. Because percentage wise, it's about 200 to 300% of labor. Whatever your overhead is going to be about 200% of your labor, 200 to 300% of your labor. Or it's 30% of your business, right? In most cases. And so you can look at it a couple different ways. You have that in your garage and you have that if you are a full-fledged large contractor. But let's turn to the numbers, lady.
I love everything you're saying. And if, again, like my area of expertise, just based on my own personal experience, was I got a handle on the numbers and I try and keep it super simple. It's not complicated. You got to understand a balance sheet and a profit and loss if you want to go into business for yourself. Why? Because it's your money.
Do you have to know that before you get started?
If you don't, you'll hit a rock,
Yeah.
and then you'll figure it out. Is that the worst thing? No,
Or
I
find
don't
an
know.
accountant that can explain it to you.
Yeah,
in
and
layman's terms.
maybe all of that. It's like I didn't have a business plan when I started a business, but at some point you run into the rock of not having a plan.
Correct.
Right. So it's wherever you are is where you are. This is where, like, your one man, Greg, if he's happy.
Yeah.
There's like a cadre of drain cleaners down in
Yeah.
Southern California that surf and clear drains. They seem happy.
Yeah.
They seem happy. So if you're happy, that's great. What can happen, and this is coming from an older person, you can't do it forever.
Right. Eventually your knees give out. You can't climb through
my
attics
gosh,
forever.
The backs, the knees, the shoulders, and
Mhm.
stuff gets a little bit rough. And that, so when you hit a rock, sometimes that's a time to assess. You and I've talked about health crisis before. Those rocks in your life are these really moments where you take an assessment and think, what do I want to do differently? So the point of power is now, if you're happy, great. And if you want to change something, a plan helps, and knowing that the numbers help. Along your lines too, with the overhead, a bigger company has so many billable hours over which to distribute.
Exactly.
that
That's
overhead.
what I was thinking about when you said that, because we've gotten to the point to where we have enough technicians to where it's like, okay, like we have a lot of vans, but I don't feel the pain that I felt at one van or two vans. I felt that pain. Now you have, 12 vans and it's like, how can I afford 12 vans?
Right. Or you lose a guy and you're losing a 12th of your sales. You lose a guy and you lose half your sales.
Yeah.
That's going to hurt. Now you're doing it full time again. So if you do aspire to grow, so whatever you want to do is fine. If you do aspire to grow, there comes a point where you think of, how do I act as if I'm a bigger company? And what do bigger companies have? George Brazil, once upon a time, told me that his theory was that most companies stay at 3 or fewer trucks. And from what I can see, that's like 80% of all the contractors out there.
That's a good
right?
point.
It's very fragmented industry. They stay at about 3 or smaller trucks because that's as many as you can keep your hands on. Like you can micromanage.
Julie and I, my wife, we've talked about this all the time, and it's crazy that you said that, because it is so accurate, because it's like, would we put up with this person if we had 50 employees? We're putting up with them now, but should we put up with them? Because we have a bleeding heart syndrome over here, where it's like, I don't want to fire him. He's got a family and blah, blah, blah. But he's not hitting his KPIs. He's not delivering what he's promised. We're delivering on our end. If we were a larger company, would we be able to do that? Should we be limiting ourselves because we have a bleeding heart? We don't want to get rid of this
Well,
guy.
are you really being nice, or are you being
Good
enabling?
point. Good point.
Yeah.
Because I believe everybody has a place. And so what we do, and as a consultant, I know you've seen this, and I think it's brutal. I show up and somebody says, oh, that's Susie. She's the owner's
We already know.
daughter. There's this black cloud, over her desk looks like archaeological dig. The whole thing is just a hot mess. And I once had an experience, I'll doctor the details so you don't recognize yourself. But once I had an experience where this guy said, I can't fire my sister. My dad bought the company for my dad. He said, but she's totally unhireable. You got to keep her on the payroll. She's not doing anything. And I'm like, why don't you pay her to stay home?
So
'Cause
that way
that's-
she doesn't
Stay home.
affect.
I
she
mean,
doesn't
you've
affect
probably
the rest
given
of the
that
crew.
advice too. Yeah, pay her to
Mhm.
stay home. You're already, she's not getting anything. Just pay her to stay home. He did. He came up with a contract. It was brouhaha, the family and everything. And like 2 weeks later, she had a good job, a great job, at which she was going to be much more successful, and she still was getting paid
Oh, she was still getting paid.
for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right,
But
sister, good for
I mean,
you.
but she was when she was there, she was adversely affecting the culture and
Right.
everything
And
else.
so your assumption
Yeah.
that you're being a bleeding heart, like you're enabling someone to chronically lose. And I
Yeah.
don't think that's ethical.
That's a good point.
Okay. So like the reality is to talk, this is what I know from, again, if I'm talking to that technician. If you want to start a business of your own, number one, learn everything you can at the job you're at and make your opinions known. I want to start my own business someday. And then your boss is on notice that you're going to go.
Yeah.
Or he has to up his game, or she has to up her
To
game
keep you.
to keep you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Fair. And
Yeah.
let's talk real to each other.
Yeah.
Come into the office. I'm doing the budget. Let me show you how I do this. Like, even if he goes and starts, or she goes and starts. her
How
own
often do
business.
you actually see that happen? We do that. We're open book. Like whenever I
Oh,
ask,
that makes
what do
me
you
happy.
what do you want to do with your
Mhm.
future? I want to own my own business. Okay,
Bingo.
let's show, because I've had several technicians that have come in and said, I want to own my business. And then they were like, Lance, he's become one of my best friends now. He said, I want to own my own business one day. And then a year, 2 years later, he's like, screw that. I see how much you're doing. I'm going this. Now he's a TM for Train. He was like, I'll go this route. And so, but we were open book. And I said, look, this is how you balance, and all this other stuff. And they're like, I'm just not interested in that part. I just wanted to get rich. I was like, well, how you become a millionaire whenever be a multimillionaire.
Be an
The-
influencer.
And then
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to play.
There's so many ways to play.
Yeah.
But with that being said, peer-to-peer groups, we mentioned this earlier, you are the 5 people that you surround yourself with. I find that things, when I first started my first business in 14 that I thought was impossible, like now it's like, oh, that's just a piece of cake. All you do is X, Y, and Z. And it's because I can ask any of my friends that I meet with every Friday. With that being said, EGIA, like, why start that? How did that come to fruition? Like,
Well, it was a nonprofit organization that worked with utilities out of Sacramento, California.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and so when a utility has a rebate program or any type of campaign, more often than not, they're not running that. They hire some third-party entity to
Mhm.
kind of handle the fulfillment of that. So EGIA was doing that for many, many years. And then they brought on, in order to finance those projects that people would do, businesses and homeowners would do, they found that the contractors that they partnered with, the utilities were kind of pushing the work through to incentivize customers to make these energy efficiency upgrades that customers couldn't afford it. So they started a financing platform. And then they said, okay, well, we've got the financing platform, we've got the utility side going. Well, what we should do is start a vendor group where we get the preferred vendors in, and we get group purchasing power of these vendors for our contractor network, because they had about 25,000 contractors that they were partnering with out of the California area.
Mm.
And so when they decided to start that, I said, well, why don't you also start an education entity? I can find you the guy that can basically, get you, into that business. He's basically run the vendor model as well as the university. And so back in, I think that was like 2016, we had that idea to start Contractor University.
And you guys have like a full video array of videos for everything from financing to sales to marketing. I mean, you guys have like industry leaders that have been doing this for a really long time.
Yeah.
It's pretty cost effective really to start too. And that's the thing too, with all these training groups, there's trainers online and everything else. And it's a huge upfront expense for somebody that wants to get in the business and learn. Can you guys, maybe Drew, maybe you can talk a little bit about what that looks like from a membership perspective?
Yeah. I mean, so we have, I think we're up about 1,100 members right now, nationwide in Canada. And they're, many of them are in all the trades, but we're primarily focused on HVAC and solar. And EGIA's mission is to promote energy efficiency into the marketplace, right, across the United States and Canada. And that's kind of what we've got going. So what we decided to do is we assembled this huge talent pool of the best minds in the industry: sales, marketing, business, pricing, organizational structure. It was part of that initial group that sat down. We had about, I think it was about 17, 18 of us there at that meeting in Scottsdale when we first met. And we decided to build a platform where we would have live training, classroom training. We would have virtual training. We would have videos as well as online content that was recorded and downloadable content. So, I mean, everything that you can think of for any learning modality is available through EGIA at a very affordable cost, because it's only $499 a month, because we're a nonprofit. All the other best practices groups that are out there, and there's some really good ones doing some really good things, they tend to be quite a bit more expensive because they are a for-profit business.
Right.
And they have to make that engine run. EGIA already had the infrastructure to run. So all it had to do is bring in the talent.
Well, and honestly, what I can tell you from my experience was your guys is fine, because you guys are so large and you have so many partnerships, is we were able to use a finance partner, and with our equipment manufacturer, stuff like that, we literally paid for the membership more than, I don't know the exact numbers, but we paid for the membership well over what it was worth. Plus we had all the free assets that we could go and watch anytime. We can watch Weldon Long on demand, or Gary, or any of you guys that, if we really want to go deep into a topic. And I think that's the power of a group like this, where you can it pays for itself based on what you sell.
Yeah.
So now you're getting free training just by selling these products, using the financing programs and stuff like that you guys have, which I know EGIA, I think in a very short amount of time, we're going to be announcing a new finance partner and program for everybody as well.
I heard that.
Yes. Rumor
Where
has
it is, yeah.
Yeah. And the nice thing about it is it's very accessible to any contractor. So we've been talking obviously about the contractor that is a technician who wants to go into business for themselves. So even that person can kind of afford this organization because they can get access to everything. They don't have to go to the live classes. We do virtual classes, and we have all this recorded content where it's really Google for your HVAC business.
That's cool.
Yeah. You can find anything you need.
That is really awesome. We have tons of people. I was just looking through the live chat. Al Levy.
Is he there?
Oh, he is.
Eddie McFarland.
Ed McFarland.
Hey.
Al said that he rereads your book at least once a year.
Oh, I'm so glad you're there. I haven't even gotten to systems yet, Al.
Yeah.
So yes. So, that's so fun.
It's a whole stream. I mean, I know you guys can't see it from your end, but it's a whole stream. All the comments come into one place. We can kind of put them up on the screen for people that are watching and stuff like that.
All right. Well, I'm going to come back to Al in just a minute. This is what came up for me when you said that's really affordable. And because we can, have these buyers program, that's awesome. And here's what I would want you to watch for. What we see in this industry, my mentor, Frank Blau, talked about a lack of self-esteem. So we have with service technicians who, the boss comes up with a price and it seems exorbitant. We're going to charge $25,000 for the system that creates weather in your house. I mean, put that together. And it seems too much. So this guy goes out on his own, and his thought is, well, if I cut corners, I can charge less. So what will happen, the manufacturer rebate comes out, the discounts on these products, and they don't even keep it.
Yeah.
They give it to the customer.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you look at this chain of distribution, I just went to Italy. I went to a manufacturing plant there. My husband works for Cleffi. They make hydronic and solar components. It's unbelievable. It's beautiful. They test everything. The amount of
the factory or Italy?
The factory. Well, all of it. Yeah, all of it.
Italy's worth it.
Dan Holohan tells a story about a copper elbow and its journey across the world, and just about how interesting a copper elbow would be. But when he told me that story, I was thinking about all the families that are responsible for bringing these products to the contractor's door, and then the contractor is responsible for making sure the whole chain of distribution gets paid what they're worth.
Yeah.
And unless they learn how to sell, unless there are systems and procedures for operating at a solid level for getting the job done right the first time, for making good on the promises of the salesperson, you just made everybody in that whole distribution take the hit.
Yeah.
And the customer is often the richest person in the whole line.
Yeah.
Right.
You've
and
undervalued everybody in the process.
And I think that part of it is because I don't know how to do any of these things. I'm not a technician.
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative of someone who can actually do it. Lightning wranglers or electricians, solar guys turn the sun into energy. And, what could go wrong with HVAC? We have gas, electrical, fire, what?
Mold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Growth inside of a home.
That should be
Mhm.
expensive.
Yeah, it really is. The safety of the consumer and everything.
You
Yeah.
should make, and your team should make a good living doing that kind of work.
I think that a lot of times, a lot of people, they're like, I don't really know as much as people think I know. And so then it's
That's good.
I don't want to charge what they're charging because I think that they know more than I do. And it's like, in reality, they probably don't. There's a chance that you might know more than they do about this, and so you should be charging more than them. But yeah, I've seen that before, where it's like junior technicians that are saying $600 for a condenser fan motor. Like, it only costs $89,
and they don't know their numbers. And the other thing is, if they don't know their skill, like you've seen this too, a really talented technician has a lot more confidence in the sales process. Yeah. They're not going to sell something they don't know how to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is where my buddy Al Levy comes in. And the real influence that Al had on my life, first off, he's my best friend forever. And if you haven't read The 7 Power Contractor, please do so.
It's great.
It's really good.
I've never seen him drop your name.
And we do it,
Right.
we do it all the time. We do it all the time. But what Al did is he said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to teach these guys to get good, guys and gals, to get good. And that comes down to that painful process of writing down your systems and procedures. And now this involves Google Docs and videos and maybe Trainual and, some more updated ways to deliver this information. But, when you said trust a guy, trust him to do what?
Right.
Right. The game is we create a procedure that now serves as your training curriculum, your accountability measurement, and a resource for this person out in the field to go access to make, because otherwise they're going to YouTube, which is
absolutely
helpful.
I mean, it's good. We even have videos on YouTube, and I've had a customer say before, they're like, your guy was watching YouTube while he's putting on this condenser fan motor. And I was like, who was the YouTube of? It was like, it was a YouTube of you. I was like, exactly. That's my point. I had them going back. It wasn't a normal condenser fan motor. It was a special one-off. And so I had a YouTube video of me doing it. And so, but he gave me a hard time about that. But with Trainual, and so we use Interplay Learning also for the same thing. And I've had guys in the attic with a blower motor or with heat strips or stuff like that. And they're going back through a course that they know they've already gone through before. And they're like, oh yeah. I just wanted a refresher. I just want to make sure I wasn't making a mistake and all this other stuff. So,
and then he's not calling you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing.
There's your key to freedom. And that's really the impact that Al had on Zoom Drain. And he's just had on so many companies. I met him once upon a time because he was a Contractors 2000 member. Al and I have known each other like 25 years, but that book is really valid in getting you on the path of understanding those areas of your business that you need to document and disseminate so that people know how to do things so you don't have to answer every question.
Yeah, we had Al on the show a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, he was great. And Al also said to tell Drew, hey, too.
He didn't forget about you.
Hey, Al, good to have you.
Al's an
Eddie as well.
influencer now. His latest career is an influencer. Who knew?
It is. It's
knew?
great.
Glad to have Eddie McFarland as well.
Oh yeah, Eddie. I was out in Ohio with Eddie a couple of weeks ago at the Copeland Scroll factory, the Copeland compressors. Great people. The program that you have that you created, what's the backstory on creating something like that? Because you were in the industry and then you were in plumbing or HVAC. Oh, you were in HVAC. Okay. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, how did you transition from plumbing to heat load energy design?
So Energy Design Systems is a company that we ended up buying. I had two co-owners with that, and we ended up buying it from my friend's widow after he passed away. So Phil Jeffers was the genius behind this. He built it, I think, about 16 years ago. And he was selling Elite software, our HVAC, which was a residential load calculation program, selling that and teaching it. And then when I left my family business after we sold it, I got into working with him, selling load calc software and teaching load calc software. Basically, it's a sales tool.
Mhm.
right? And I'm a sales trainer, and so we were using
Makes
that
sense, yeah.
as a tool. And so he decided to build his own platform. He figured, hey, I don't need to build a standards tool. I can build a sales tool where I can differentiate salespeople in the home and tell a story to, Bill and Susan homeowner at the table with a load calc, live.
That nobody else has done.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most contractors do a load to get the result that they already know, right?
Right. Yeah.
And they gamify the software. So you can take a process like ACCA Manual J,
Mhm.
and most contractors gamify it to get the result that they want. And so he saw that and he says, well, then why have a tool like that
Yeah.
if we can basically develop a simpler, faster tool
Mhm.
that will allow us to be more effective at selling? Because what you come to find is I ask when I teach load calculation software classes or even sales training classes, I ask everybody, how many of you do load calculations? And every hand goes up. And I say, on every single home. And every hand goes down.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, what if you had a tool that would allow you to do that in 5 minutes?
See, that's it.
Yeah.
I've talked to people before and they're like, I'm going to spend an hour and a half. I'm going to measure every single room. I'm going to find their insulation R value inside their walls and everything else. And then they're just going to say, oh no, you're too expensive.
Mhm.
And I'm going to take your heat load count and I'm going to ask this guy to give me a price on that, same thing. And so I just don't do a heat load calc until after I've sold the system or sold the job. And so,
Big mistake.
yeah. And then you sell one that's a half ton too small. And then you're going back to them and say, hey, look, I have to charge you a couple extra, $100, $1,000, whatever, because I priced it wrong because I did a heat load. Like, how do you have that conversation? Like, what do you tell a sales guy or a comfort specialist that feels that way strongly?
Well, being as a sales trainer, it's that time in the home where I get to walk around the house. I get to see every supply, every return. I get to measure all the windows and the doors, and I'm seeing what they value and how they live and what's important to them. And I'm hearing about.
So you're making sure that they come with you.
Oh yeah. It's
So
interactive.
what happens if they want to sit in the living room or they want to go back to their home office and just like, hey, just get me when you're done?
And that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens. And so, I mean, you roll with the punch if you have to, but more often than not, like I said, if I explain my process to the customer, I tell my
communication.
customer, here's the process that we as a contractor have to go through and you as a homeowner should go through when making an investment of this magnitude.
Yeah.
And I walk them through what the process is. I'm going to have a lot of questions. You're going to have a lot of questions. I'm going to have you take me on a tour of the house. We'll turn the system on if we can, if it's running. But I'm going to have you show me the location of each supply, each return, and we're going to measure the house. And so we tell them the process. And so if I set expectations, more often than not, they come along and play.
Even in the
Nice.
attic or
Well, more often than not, they
Okay.
don't go in the attic. But
Yeah.
that's where you can go if you have to. You can go
Yeah.
virtual, right? If you want to
yeah.
dial a customer in, or you take video, or you
Record
bring
it,
pictures
yeah.
back,
Mhm.
to the customer.
Yeah,
That's
phones.
all.
I remember back whenever when I was in that realm in 05-ish, we didn't have when we had the click to talk phones. We didn't have the fancy
The
stuff.
Nextels, yeah.
Yeah. So we had actual little cameras. They're cheap now, but they weren't cheap back then. And we had these cameras where we video camcord up in the attic and bring it back down so people could see it, or even take and pull a blower wheel. Like, blower wheel's already out. You sure you don't want me to clean this?
Yeah.
And then stick it back in? But yeah, that's these small devices that we keep in our pocket, they're a tool that's so underutilized, I feel like.
I call it a life management device because I mean you can really run your whole
is.
life and business from
Yeah.
that device.
It is. I mean, we're a living example of it. I mean, between this iPad and this phone, I had, or this MacBook, we run our business virtually and remotely. So
It can also be a great distraction.
huge distraction.
Yeah.
If you don't
TikTok.
set your notifications right, like it can be a huge distraction.
Cool. Well, what do you have? I mean, we're running up on our hour here, so
Oh, this goes so fast.
it does. It goes so fast. Josh, did I miss anything?
No, this is great. I think CJ's going to probably try to get us into the next event next door. So,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
this was,
because it's a party.
yeah, I mean,
There's
honestly,
I mean,
Party
we're in
animals.
Vegas, so no.
for me, it was great to meet people who have really kind of paved the way industry wide, and to have programs like this that have helped us run companies more profitable and stuff like that.
Ed has a question. He'd like to hear what you guys think of the future of sales. The future of sales is within
great
our
question.
industry. Are we going to go, like, he didn't ask this part, but are we going to go virtual? Are we going to go remote, like contactless sales?
Or is it going all online?
Yeah,
which is
I
something
mean,
that we've talked
because
about
we
more
use
more frequently.
we use lots of programs out there, and I'm having a brain. What's that one that?
Contractor commerce.
No, yeah, well, contractor commerce, but the one that's on their website. Julie, what's the name of it? Julie's sitting here behind me. She's off camera, and she doesn't know either. I'm
Too bad we
trying.
don't
I
have
am
another
so
camera case
right.
behind yours.
but we
I
have
already
like
know.
Schedule Engine. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Schedule Engine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was thinking
Yes.
that too.
So
When
Schedule
does that
Engine.
Of
fit?
course, you have Eddie, and he's asking the question.
God, Eddie, sorry. I am so sorry, Eddie. I was
Eddie was
huge.
paving the way for us
He
to drop
really-
Schedule Engine's name, and we didn't get the hits.
exactly. So Eddie, yes, I'm so sorry about that. Schedule Engine was having I mean, you can add the videos to your, like, it sets us up for that virtual sales. Like, what do y'all feel like is going to happen?
I am grateful that in drain cleaning, we're not at the point.
You have to go.
You have
You
to
gotta
go
You
there.
have to go
Yeah.
to see what's going
Yeah,
on.
Gotta
yeah, yeah.
go. However, like even things like prices and the whole experience and stuff that I would have thought I would never do. I think you have to be open to how consumers are buying things. Because I'm old and I want to set up the appointment. I want to do everything. I don't want to talk to anybody. I mean, if I'm on my phone doing it, at 11 p.m., I certainly don't want to call.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to be open to this. But certainly in the HVAC world, from what I understand with Schedule Engine, it can, in a big company on a busy day, it could help you triage calls and not go to calls that
Yeah.
are going to be just to turn the breaker back on
Mhm.
or, something like this. I think that you got to look here.
No, I mean, I agree. You have to embrace the technology that's out there for whatever aspect of it that you can. And so Schedule Engine for what it does, and, Service Titan obviously does its thing. And, Weldon has a program called Rehash Leads. And,
Oh, yeah. Rehash. Yeah.
there's all kinds of tools that are out there, but that's exactly what they are, in my opinion, is that they're tools. I say, own your value. And when you own your value in person, that's where you show up your strongest. And so you might start the call and triage it somewhat virtually, but like you said, you don't know till you go, right? And so
That's a good point.
I don't know whether or not that duct system is adequate. I don't know whether that chimney is safe. I don't know about the pre-existing conditions and code compliance issues that are in that home.
Code compliance is a big thing because most homeowners have no clue.
They would know.
And
Yeah.
the codes have changed. And
Yeah.
there's safety issues. I mean, our industry, we have a gentleman here from Building Performance Institute, Larry Zarka, the president, and he's on our foundation board, and we had our meeting a little bit earlier, but he says the same thing. You have to get into the home to see how this system performs, right? So if I just go ahead and sell you high efficiency equipment online to replace your
Right.
low efficiency equipment,
Yeah.
but I put it on a low efficiency duct system in a
Yep.
low efficiency house, you're just wasting energy more efficiently.
Or the ductwork's too small. It's all flex
That's a good way
ductwork,
to
and
put
then
that.
you have 1 inch of static pressure all
There
the
you go.
time, and then all your energy efficiency has just gone out the window
Yeah.
because that blower motor just eats it up.
I mean, think about it this way. During the pandemic, people, got into the whole virtual thing. As
Yeah.
well, with these
Yeah, yeah.
virtual service calls.
Mhm.
And there's like a portion of that can go so far. But think about even the virtual doctors. At some point, right, when the doctor says, on the screen, you're going
Uh-huh.
back and forth, and you say, I got a pain. Where is it? Left side, right side? Well, it's on the right side. Whereabouts? On my stomach. Okay. And you say, well, lift your shirt. Let me see what's going on there. And push right there. Yeah.
But they
it seems
can't
like-
feel it. Like
Correct.
the doctor can't feel it. Yeah.
And so the doctor doesn't say to you at this point, push on it. Oh, I think you're having appendicitis.
Right.
You say, well, what should I do? Should I go to the hospital? Should I get to the emergency room? Should I call an ambulance? What should I do? No. Here's what I want you to do. Go to your kitchen drawer, get the sharpest knife you can, get the bottle of vodka, and we're gonna take care of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Right?
Do it.
No,
We got
Clean
it.
that thing up.
you
Yeah.
gotta get in person.
Yeah.
You gotta lay your hands on that stuff. And we don't own our value, and we're allowing technology to co-opt our industry.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you got to basically say, where does the true value come from? You got to show it.
Yeah, I think-
I love that. And I want to add this piece to it too. So on your website, in your interface with your customers, before you show up, that's where a really great video of you talking real
Yeah.
to people, like if they were to see you, Tersh, before you showed up or before,
Mhm.
I'm going to send over one of my technicians and here's what we do to make sure he's ready to go or she's ready to go. And you can set the stage with technology so
Yeah.
that you start to build that relationship before you get there. I think that's really leveraging the best of both worlds.
That is a great point. We have clients all the time. Julie mainly gets them because people don't call me. They don't want to talk to me,
Right.
but they'll say, what program are you using? Like, because we had the the complete bio and everything. The service technician was, a photo of them and everything. And they're like, oh, I want to use that for my business. We have a lot of friends who have businesses as well. And like, I want to use that. I'm like, well, it really wouldn't work for yours, but it's a great program. And thank you for valuing it. And we get that all the time. It's like our guard was down because we knew the guy, we had a story, and most of our bios are real funny too. So they'll add a little sense of humor to it because it's a stressful situation.
Sure.
We get it 100%. And so
good.
it's one of those things where it's like disarmament. And I remember whenever we first, like, my whole thing with Service Titan was I knew I wanted to be a virtual company. I wanted to be remote, and I wanted some automation built in because we're automation junkies. Josh and I love Zapier. And one of those things was sending out that text message beforehand, the email. And it's now it seems very normal, but it wasn't 2018. It was not normal at that time. So it's crazy how fast the technology changes. But if we're not careful, we can allow that automation to just, oh yeah, we've done that. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So we don't have to worry about building that into our culture anymore. And that pre-report call, because now they have this, we feel like we don't have to do the pre-report call anymore. No, the pre-report call is massively important.
Yes.
Because then that's the call whenever they're asking, hey, I'm going to stop by the gas station. You want me to pick you up some coffee on the way? I'm going to stop by Starbucks. I'm going to pass, whatever the case may be. That's how you have that voice interaction. So for us, we did do that. We relied on technology, and that we're like, we don't have to worry about the pre-report call anymore. Where do I park questions and stuff like that. And it really, we could tell with our clients that was not good. So we went right back to the pre-report call, and it makes a massive difference in our business anyways.
Yeah, I think with technology, you got to blend it with the
Yeah.
on-site, right? Like
10-4.
on a marketing side, get them in a funnel, get them interested, and get them to buy the way they buy. But you still got to go on site. You still got to look at the duct system. You still got to look at the house, make sure there's no problems. But I think there's still a way to embrace the technology and bring it full circle with the in-person visit. So then you can really close the sale. Because honestly, there's probably things that they see these other options like on Amazon, right? Like when Tersh picks out his latest podcast equipment, which is crazy. Right? He sees all these options, but you don't necessarily know what all these options are, like UV lights and electrostatic filters and all these other things. But you can go on site, you can actually show them what it is.
That's a good point.
After they've already said yes once, right? They said, well, hey, nobody else had their upfront pricing online. So you guys, I trust you more.
Mm-hmm.
You're in the home now. Now I can offer you some other options to keep your family safe, keep them healthy.
Jerry Rollins said virtual. Read what he said. I can't read it over there.
Yeah, it says virtual sales are the future in HVAC residential sales, and the future is now.
Jerry Rollins with schedule. Yeah, he's a good dude. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously people feel strongly both ways, but I agree. I mean, based off of what we said here, I mean,
because I mean, you'll get in the house, but at some point you're going to have to basically make the house, work. Right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to take, we're going to end up pulling out flow hoods, and I highly recommend that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But
is that part of your sales process, having a flow hood?
I recommend it.
Yeah.
Recommend it.
Love it.
Because you're taking the blood pressure of the system.
Yeah.
It's all theory and concept on the duculator and tape measure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when I can tell you, hey, this is blowing X amount of air and this is blowing Y amount of air, and the customer says, well, they're the same size, should they blow about the same amount?
Right.
As well as this room uncomfortable.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it is, right? The technology doesn't lie, right?
Absolutely.
It's math, facts, science, data. It's not opinion.
Right.
Most contractors have opinions.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. And I love what you said there about using the flow hood, because we could have a 3-ton system here that we've turned it way back,
Mm-hmm.
or the ductwork is strangling it so much, or the blower wheel. It's a 15-year-old system that never had a filter change, and the blower wheel's impacted completely. And so we put in a new system, and it blows your old fixed duct apart. It's a great point you made
We were
there.
talking before we started here about your two businesses, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have a Neiman Marcus business and
Mm-hmm.
you have a Walmart business.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
But you can't have both.
No, you cannot.
It cannot be the
It
same.
does not work.
It does
Trust me,
not.
I have tried it.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
And you can be anywhere in between on that spectrum. But what happens to those people, they're the also rans.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
And they're a dime a dozen. That's everybody else who's in the game.
Mm.
Right. And so if you aspire to greatness, you can't tolerate mediocrity.
That's right.
And so therefore, yes, I agree. Yes, if you want to go that route of going all online, yes, I think there's going to be a line of people that go that direction. It's already happened, right?
Mhm.
But there's also going to be the people that are going to be the boutique contractor,
Al.
right?
What's Al saying?
Ask Ellen if she agrees with this nerd airflow discussion.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking, I have no idea what they're talking about.
That's okay. That's
I'm
okay.
just smiling sweetly.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
Ellen and Drew, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
This has been a complete honor for us, and it's been great to be able to interact with people online too. With
Yeah.
that-
Well, thank you guys because
Yeah.
we talked about hanging out. Like now we get to hang out with you and all the cool guests that you bring. So if you are looking to expand your business understanding in a short way, this is a great place to be.
where can they learn more about each of you?
Zoomdrain.com, zoomdrainfranchise.com, or ellen.rohr@zoomdrain.com. Call me or email me. That's probably the best way. And then, we'll hook you up with what we've got going on. It's pretty exciting.
Cool. And I'll have that in the show notes also for everybody that's
Well, that's
listening.
sweet of you.
How about you?
Flowodyssey.us is the sales training business, and then eds.tech is the software business.
US. Not .com, but .us.
.us.
Yep. Cool. Thank you all so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
It was
Thank
so
you,
much
Ellen.
fun. It went so fast.
Now we get to go party together.
Really do.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we do.
Party on.
We do. Absolutely. Cool deal. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Swap that camera. Or Josh, and we'll get you definitely connected with everybody. And with that being said, there'll be more shows coming this week. But if we don't talk again before then, be safe out there. See you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you